Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolan. Pretty fired up today for various reasons, but it all relates to the energy, positive and negative, created by this campaign yesterday and what led up to it, the reaction to it. So pretty hard for me to talk about anything else in today's show. And first I have a few personal anecdotes that I feel support why the hell I can speak on this, and you might listen. All related to this concept of manufacturers, in this case HubSpot, educating and their responsibility to educate their target market and their target user base on what the product does, from a very black and white perspective, input versus output. Then you have manufacturer reps, in this case, the partners that have a responsibility to educate their target market, their target users, their target customers on how the product manufactured by HubSpot can be applied to their business and their use cases. So thinking on this, apparently I've always been in this position on one side or the other. And one anecdote from ASI standards, where we made, reference materials to be tested on analytical equipment. When I was production and quality control manager, and somebody would call up suggesting that there was a problem with the material that we sold them, it was not uncommon for me to uncover the fact that they didn't know how to use the instrument. So how could they possibly get a good value from the material that we sold them? So in that moment, I have to highlight this and do some education myself on what they need to be doing with the instrument. Not my responsibility primarily, but I need to make sure the education is there in order for them to be successful with my product. So let's say in the HubSpot ecosystem, it's the app, provider, developer, or it's the, the partner that built the customized, website or tooling in HubSpot. If they don't know how to enter contacts, the right way, and they don't put the information in the system the way you need them to for your app to work, your app's not going to work. Right? So it forces you, if HubSpot, if some other education has not happened, it forces you as the provider to do that education so your stuff can work. When I worked for Metal Analysis Group as a true manufacturer rep, where we didn't make anything, and when I first started there, we represented Oxford, now known as Hitachi. And there was a great content marketing machine developed. I had blogs, articles, videos related to the products I needed to sell. Sometimes even application focused, but there was always this tweak that had to be done to say, hey, this is the video about scrap, but here's what the video is not saying, and let's just say for ease of use, it's related to acronyms that this market knows and the manufacturer might not be addressing. Not dissimilar from if you've ever been to a manufacturing focused SaaS product page, they're trying to speak to manufacturers in the language of SaaS, and that does not work. We moved away from Hitachi to a different vendor, Rigaku, and I had 3 videos that were 4 years old that I didn't want to share. Like, they had incorrect information, and So I went from a ton of content that could help me with the sales and education process. I still had to tweak it, but just having that video to share and then being able to tweak what was said in the video was hugely beneficial. Now, without any videos, the conversation became, and this is where I learned a lot from this relationship, who should be making those videos, right? It is not in the manufacturer's best interest to let the outsider make the videos for what the product does and who it's for, right? Our expertise lies in the value added, service we're providing by being closer to the customer and understanding their use case. So manufacturers need to create stuff related to their product because that's where their expertise is. Value added, partners create content around the application. Moved back to a manufacturer, actually in the next two instances, and the same problem existed, except for the fact that it manifested in two different ways. In the first way, it was another case of the manufacturer not having enough content to support its distributors. And the distributors, no matter how often they told us, there was no change that I tried to impact but could not in towards supporting them better. Outside of creating some new websites that were very product marketing focused and a lot of people appreciated. Then in the last case, it was the other way, where a new product was being launched that we knew could sell a lot, and I was brought in to help sell a lot of that new product. But the status quo was that the manufacturer reps were the ones with the relationships, and they did all the education, right? So now as a manufacturer, I have this new product that I need the whole world to know about because it's game changing. And I have no channels set up to educate the world on it. I am forced to go through manufacturer reps who have been selling a completely different product forever. You do not want the manufacturer reps in charge of that education process because it's a lot easier to sell the not new product than it is the new product. That education has worked for them too. So while there were challenges related to why do we need to be speaking directly to the customer when you have the relationships, when I was able to talk to reps, they understood the value of us controlling our own narrative and our own product, marketing. So that's where this is coming from. And, before we get into yesterday, anytime most of the presentations I've ever seen about product roadmap or what's new on the admin hub, things like that, right, would direct people to this page, right? So HubSpot.com/new, which is actually quite a bit updated since yesterday. But it was delivered very much in the vein of like, any kind of product updates, like feature bug fix thing you've ever seen, like very black and white. Here's what's new. Like not a lot of hype, not a lot of, marketing applied, right? Just, and until, yesterday, it still had like CMS hub on it instead of content hub. So I imagine all the energy was going into the spotlight. But the point is it's meant to be a reference point. It's not meant to be a place for announcements or engaging, conversations, engaging educational content. And we've all been talking about the problem that is HubSpot moving so fast on the product front that nobody can keep up. And as we look at what's on this update to the new page, they address that. Introducing Spotlight, it's hard to keep up with what's new at HubSpot. We hear you, and that's why we decided that it's time to reinvent. And like we got to let them try to do this. In response to this, like the negative energy that came from the community yesterday was just so counterproductive. Now, and imagine like any hype generated, no matter how you see the result, and users were seeing that. And the information on this page that we'll go through in a second addresses all the specific gaps that I know I've been talking about in terms of what people know about HubSpot and what they don't. And I know I've experienced with HubSpot internal stakeholders and everybody in the ecosystem. Basically, these three here, Service, Content, and Commerce Hub, nobody knows about what they can and can't do. And that leads to everybody focusing on, these two, marketing and sales. And that's why everybody knows HubSpot for a marketing and sales product or a marketing tool or a sales tool or just a CRM. And I was happy to see not a lot of that stuff on this page, right? Because there's been a pretty good job of educating on those fronts. Now, I don't have any inside information, and where I lack experience is the publicly traded company side of things, like how much can they share prior to campaigns like this? Where's the risk? Obviously, when it comes to true like content, like truly new product launches. So this, like, people higher up in the system where I'm sure they see less risk, like elite partners, for example, get information. Content Hub is an example, right? They were not caught by surprise on the day it was launched. How much could have been done here to communicate to partners like this is something different, like day before email or something? Hey, it's not really a product launch. It is a launch of a new way to educate about our products, about what's new. So I think that's a spot where, while I don't agree with the partner reaction, I can understand where it's coming from. And, I'll still be a little harsh in that as a recovering only child spoiled brat myself. Like, are we really that spoiled and entitled to think that everything has to be new and about us all the time? When we're actually the ones dealing with the problems that have been created by the product moving so fast. The churn impacts us. The challenging project work impacts us. And it gets in the way of doing some really big bang value projects, and helping people get the most out of HubSpot. And like, how many people that follow partners might have seen a disappointment post and said like, okay, I don't need to go to the Spotlight page now. And how many of those people would have gotten something out of coming to this page, right? And from a HubSpot, goals perspective, again, I don't have any inside information, but it makes sense to me when they know that this is a problem for these products specifically. They've got to try and do something about it. And if they also know that the only way to get educated or try to educate yourself on this is by following a shit ton of people on LinkedIn, being super active in Sprocketeer and other communities like it, although there aren't really many like it, not everybody's willing to go and find the Kyle Jepsen post from 4 months ago, right? So there's a lot of opportunity created here by just starting with this campaign. And as I pulled it up today, right, the next step is already applied. We're all looking for an event yesterday, right? Well, here's that event. Register here. And if we go and we click on it, right, got virtual spring spotlight product roundup, RSVP. It's on May 2nd. So next week, right? We're going to get the event that we were looking for. And now I guarantee, and I'm hopeful that a lot of this, I think, it's definitely expectation management on the partner side and on HubSpot side. That's what I'm saying. I think HubSpot could have done something to, help manage expectations as to what was really happening here. But now that we know what it is, I know a bunch of partners that were disappointed yesterday are going to show up for this thing or are going to be aware of it. And now there's going to be some positive reactions to how stuff's presented, the way that questions were answered. And this is the kind of stuff, like this type of experience. So this is a very inbound like experience that was my vibe that I got it. So it aligns with and could possibly create a 365 channel of a go-to spot that goes way beyond what this page used to be, right? And is, right? It's like, this is the place you come to and you'll get information about products. And it's not just go check out your product updates in your HubSpot portal. Like, it's different. We have to find a way to engage people and pique their interest enough to want to click. And that's where, sure, you're not going to get a lot of meat on this page, but this is how we start to remedy and avoid the, oh, I thought the Service Hub was just tickets. Like, oh, I thought that the website was just cost a bunch of money, and why would I do that instead of free WordPress? Oh, I get all this stuff. I didn't know that, right? Like, oh, HubSpot can do Commerce Hub, right? And this creates an avenue to be searching for something like AI, any of these topics, and be exposed to the other things in a less abrasive way, a less overwhelming way. And it creates a foundation to have inbound like events, like not unlike this one, I'm sure, like throughout the year, in a place that HubSpot can control the narrative and take control of this problem that is their responsibility to solve. Hey, Colton, good to see you. And so that's where I think, like, I appreciate the gut reaction. That's where a lot of it came from, just expectations. And we're always, HubSpot's so good at making us feel like it's Christmas morning every day, right? So when we hear a big bang, announcement, we get excited and we want to know what else could possibly be new because it's just all gravy. So that's where there's some alignment I think HubSpot could do. And that's the kind of thing, like, if I'm assuming positive intent, I'm assuming a lot of smart people working at one of the best companies on the planet that know what they're doing. A lot of thought and effort went into this, right? And strategy. But as I've worked inside the ecosystem, they are still a business like any other with very similar problems, especially around, even around internal communications and, managing customer expectations. In this case, I think the partners are such a massive part of the hype machine that it can be overlooked, and clearly was overlooked, that while we are like 100% dedicated to hyping whatever needs to be hyped, it would be helpful to understand the goals of what we're hyping. And if we get rubbed the wrong way because we didn't think, the expectations were not matched, we're going to let other people know that. We do it positively, we do it negatively, right? So maybe some some effort and that's the kind of thing I think could easily be overlooked. Like if we think about goals, and I imagine one of the goals is and should be, it's our responsibility to educate our target market on everything that is HubSpot, and they are currently not educated on everything that is HubSpot and what it is. So how do we remedy that? Goal number one. If we think about this campaign as a possible way to do that, goals that come to mind are how do we get as many people as possible to this page, right? Now and maybe forever going forward. Because that is the place that if we can create that experience, and this doesn't replace what's happening on LinkedIn, it helps what's happening on LinkedIn. We still are going to be the go-to place for applications of HubSpot, right? But when you have 7,000 partners, probably like 5% or less are active on LinkedIn doing education like this. 200,000 customers, and Sprocketeer only has 1,500 people in it, right? We need a ton of help from HubSpot on this education curve. And one of the ways I think about it is if you look at how HubSpot, basically they're choosing differentiation paths. And again, no inside information. So this is all just commentary from maybe a new perspective, maybe not, but they dominated SEO from a content perspective, right? They did it for years. They did it by going 100% inbound and creating a ton of content. And there was a ton of resources and infrastructure created to support that. At some point, maybe around the time of the Salesforce non-compete, they switched to product development mode. And, when you got tons of product teams and tons of product development infrastructure now moving like forward at the speed of sound, all the resources are focused there. It starts to differentiate HubSpot even more, and we start to move up market. But now we have this gap of what HubSpot is versus what it's perceived to be. And now to address that issue, there is a shift in resources away from content marketing in the old way, at least, and community-led, partner-led growth. Well, they're building out that infrastructure real time. And as they do that, they're finding the gaps. And this is certainly one of them. And when you're used to the academy, being enough, this is very different from the academy. How do we support micro learning and all of the stuff from a community led perspective? So we have all this stuff spinning up real time. So I mentioned to someone yesterday, like this now creates a place. This creates the ultimate agility for all the things we don't know as partners, but all the things that HubSpot doesn't know as how we solve this problem. Like we're creating like the external creator programs. We know Kyle Jepson has been doing some awesome things with, his 1 to 2 minute clips and the admin hug. How do we expand on that? How do we leverage that with more people? But also there's been an honest question of what's the best way to present all of Kyle's clips. Having it in this ephemeral state on LinkedIn is not the best experience. Like how many times do you hear each day, each week, hey, I think there was this, I swear I saw this update. I swear I saw this beta announced, but I cannot find it anywhere. It happens in Sprocketeer all the time, right? For me, this is HubSpot hearing that. And honestly, it's probably just change and we're not used to it. But again, this is where I think it's important to keep partners in the loop from a campaign, marketing campaign perspective. Even if they helped educate people, if they're in agreement on, hey, this is what you can expect from HubSpot, and this is our responsibility. This is also what we expect from you guys. Like if we make an announcement that you already knew about, the expectation is for the partner to carry that forward in an application-focused way for their customer base. It's not to be, oh, I already knew about all this stuff. I don't know what the big deal is. The big deal is 2% of the audience knows about the stuff. So how do we educate the 98%? Outside of our own sales processes and our own customer processes, because that's not going to get the job done. Meanwhile, everybody's selling this product. I'm dealing with bad advice every day on related to what HubSpot can and can't do. And it's a problem. It will create churn. It will create misaligned expectations. And it's got to be dealt with to achieve the goals we all know exist for what HubSpot can be and what it should be. And if we all believe that HubSpot can be that platform that has yet to exist and help businesses digitally transform in a way that, is quicker time to value and more affordable and cost effective, and the cost of ownership is lower than anything ever before. Like there's a lot of work to be done in making that understood and seem not too good to be true. So if we feel that it isn't, it's a true team effort to really go beyond marketing. And this is where, the last reaction I've seen that I'll talk about is I've already seen plenty of partners say, look, man, there's a lot going on here. I can't keep up. It's overwhelming me. So I'm just going to stay in my lane and be the marketing, expert, the expert on Marketing Hub. That's already 80% of the ecosystem. If we sit on that and we're okay with that, that's all HubSpot will ever be. And it can be and should be so much more. And by the way, you can't do any of the marketing shit you want to do if all of this other stuff isn't handled. I didn't get into this. I didn't think I was going to be a RevOps guy until last year, when 2 companies in a row, I'm brought in to deliver a customer experience growth plan that I get buy-in for and then fail at because of RevOps not existing, because our tech stack was not, managed at all, because we have all these customer-facing teams interacting with customers and we don't have shared data, we don't have shared language. Customer experience success does not happen without those things. So if we all take a stance of, and this is where it's on HubSpot, HubSpot has to help us not be overwhelmed. Give us a heads up on what's going on. Help partners understand. And this is where I think it needs to go outside of certs. And I think that's where this is where it's starting to be outside of Academy, right? Why does the whole platform matter? Why do you need to care about the whole platform? You don't need to be an expert on the whole platform, but you need to know how custom objects can impact marketing emails and can be used in marketing emails so that people are not having to get all this information out of another system to build the marketing email, like products, pre-sales and post-sales. And if you don't know that, you're doing a disservice to your customers, because they have to invest in more systems and more time spent maintaining those systems. And I've got some use cases that are going to be coming out soon related to Client Portal specifically, that just the simple decision to use HubSpot Content Hub, much in the way of, and this, if you can just take the guard down for a second, the same way that the decision to do a website in HubSpot versus WordPress automatically says you don't have to worry about security updates. You don't have to worry about updating all these different things. The maintenance gets way better. It becomes much more cost effective. It's less code. There's no team. For me, that I find ways for that to apply to almost everything in the platform. So as they create this foundation across the whole business, that applies in so many places. And what we're seeing is the decision to do a client portal in HubSpot takes the cost and effort down to like 10 and 20% of what it used to be. And I say used to be as of like a year and a half ago, right? So this is brand new. But if you can get to the place where, okay, I can get this data in HubSpot and now it's easier to show on a website the way I need to, how many integrations into QuickBooks and accounting systems go away? How much need to build out separate AWS infrastructure goes away? And when you take that out, how much money is saved moving forward in the maintenance and development on those systems? It's mind-blowing, but it can only blow your mind if you believe it and if you understand it. And we've got a long ways to go as in terms of all the things on these page. Like all these things on this page are massively misunderstood. So there's no coincidence that marketing and sales and CRM are not focuses of this page, right? They could be later in the year. And this is the beauty of this. Like they're just creating this open, this channel where they can help control the narrative around what HubSpot can do and what it can't do, or who's it for and who it isn't for, which is, being reduced by the day as far as who wouldn't get value out of HubSpot. And then, just a much more serviceable way, maintainable way for them to stay on the ball here, because we really need them to stay on the ball and pick up the slack where they have been very focused on product development and product functionality. And we all need help, users, partners, internal HubSpot stakeholders especially, which again, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the secondary value of educating internal stakeholders exists. That is a result of campaigns like this, right? Like I guarantee there's internal HubSpot stakeholders that learn something from this page. I know we think it shouldn't be the case, but it definitely is. And anytime I came up with a new website or something in the past, new Big Bang event, I always had internal stakeholders come to me, even though they were not the target market, and say, oh, I wish I had known this before, right? Well, you should have. We had some trainings about it, but maybe you missed that day. Maybe you were busy, right? So this whole effort to educate everybody that touches HubSpot about everything that is HubSpot is a huge, gargantuan effort, but it takes all hands on deck. And we need to feel comfortable and help HubSpot, figure out the best way to deliver and really do their part on educating the market. So I'm super excited about yesterday's announcement about the creation of this page, this new experience. They're very effortful, clearly attempt. And I personally think success at starting to solve for this problem, this education gap that we all know is there, and it's not going to solve itself. So in that, find the opportunities on this page and in, next week's spring spotlight. I mean, come on, people, it just sets up for spring spotlight, summer spotlight, inbound, whenever they want. The creation of this channel, I think, is great. and let's find the opportunities, give feedback and ideas to how this stuff can be built on, and let's grow.